everyone and welcome to another video. So if you're new here, my name's Emma and I do lots of videos based around my many pets, all the books that I love to read, and every now and then I do a makeup look to break things up. If you'd like to see more of that, then please subscribe down below and give this video a little thumbs up because it really helps. And let's just get on into the video. Those of us who've been reading for a long time will have favourite books that they can remember for different sort of parts of their lives and things that kind of shape the reader they've become. And I thought I'd have a wee look. I'd seen a few videos where people had spoken about the books that they'd read through the years and books that made them and things like that. I can link a couple of those videos that I got inspiration for this down below. And I wanted to do the same. So there are a few books that through my childhood that I read and loved, and some that I kept even though it's been, you know, a long time since I read them. I'm 30 and some of these books I probably read, you know, when I was like before I even turned 10. Some of the books that I've got in front of me here that I'm going to chat about today, they just kind of have a nostalgic kind of sentimental value to them, and there were ones that I really loved growing up and I haven't, you know, got rid of them even though I, you know, wasn't really planning on reading them again. It was more just I really loved them as a child and haven't got rid of them. So I thought I'd show you some of those that I read when I was younger, spoke about some of the books that I absolutely adored when I was a child and growing up through my teens, and then some of the other books that I read as I got a bit older and what kind of stuff I like to read today. So we'll start off with a book that I read when I was very, very young. So young that this book used to be read to me as a child, and I still have it because I adored it. This book that I'm speaking about is A Treasury of Pony Stories. Now this book is so battered, but like I had this book, I think I got it when I was maybe about 4 or 5. I was very, very young. It's one of the first books I really remember having, and it is literally what it says on the tin. It is a treasury of pony stories, of wild ponies, people with ponies, ghost ponies. I think even one's about a rocking horse, and it's super cute and has these little illustrations in, and oh, I have such fond memories of reading this. This is the kind of thing I would have read going to bed or had read to me. And like I say, I think this is probably the oldest book that I still own that I had as a child, and I don't think I'll ever get rid of this because I'm still a pony mad girl at heart. Obviously, I have my horse Dylan, and he features in my vlogs, my weekly vlogs that I usually upload, usually sometime between a Friday and a Sunday, but I'm so disorganised, it doesn't always happen. So yeah, I've had a love of horses and animals since I was a small child, so a lot of my childhood reading was based around animals. So this book I absolutely adored and have such nostalgic feelings about. I actually read this a couple of years ago again, just because I found it again going through some old boxes of books. And I still my heart was warm still reading it. I absolutely adore it. I hope it's still available. I'm not entirely sure if it is. The authors of the stories that are in the book are Joan Aitken, Adele Geras, Peter Dickinson, and Marjorie Dark, I think that's her name. And it's a lovely book. If you've got a child that adores pony stories, then I would highly recommend if you can get hold of this one, because it is just the sweetest book. And yeah, I'll never get rid of this. As most animal mad children of the 90s, at least, I'm not sure how popular these books are nowadays, but this was the books, series and author that everyone read at my age when I was younger, if they loved animal books. And the author of that was Lucy Daniels, and she had the Animal Arc series. Now that was one of those book series that had God knows how many books. I could have looked up for this video, but I didn't do that much preparation because that's just not my style. I'm very much an off-the-cuff kind of person. So she did loads of books. The ones I can remember off the top of my head was Puppies in the Pantry and Mayor in the Meadow, and there were just tons of animal-based books. It followed the main character Mandy and her best friend, and they had lots of animal-related adventures, and I read those books pretty much consistently as a child. I adored them. I think I had pretty much all of them. I have sadly removed them from my collection now, but I do still have another series by Lucy Daniels, but I don't know why I've held on to this one. Again, it's a nostalgic feeling. I read this when I was a child, and I still remember how much I loved it. And that series was the Dolphin Diaries series. Now, again, I clearly didn't look after my books very well as a child. Most of my old books are pretty battered, although admittedly, I'm very much one of those people that's like, if a book's battered, it's been well loved. You know, none of these books, you know, they've been read thousands of times. Like, it's not like I didn't care about them. They've been stuffed into bags and pockets and taken with me on many of a journey. I've actually just noticed in the front of this book, it actually has the animal art collection there. So that actually has some of the photos of the other books that I was telling you about. Kittens in the Kitchen, Pony on the Porch, Puppies in the Pantry, the one I mentioned, Goat in the Garden. That was kind of the theme. It was all, you know, to do with an animal. This one is a book about dolphins, obviously. So this follows Jodie McGrath, and her parents are marine biologists, and they end up going on a boat. And I think it's like away for a year or something like that. And they're traveling around, seeing all the different kind of dolphins and studying them in the wild. And she gets to go along with them, and she gets kind of homeschooled on the boat, and gets to see all these dolphins in the wild and things like that. And I adored this book and this series. I think there was like 6 in the series. Yes, that was it. Let me just check. Yeah, I have them all here. They're all equally as battered. They've all been read thousands and thousands of times. Let's just pop that back in there. So yeah, I adored this book. I think this is the first one, and I'm pretty sure the first dolphin she meets is called Apollo. It doesn't say on the back. But I'm sure, if I remember rightly, the first dolphin she meets is called Apollo, and I think he's like a recurring dolphin, which, like, I have such fond memories of this book. Like, it just makes me smile talking about it. I adored these books, and again, would highly recommend. Lucy Daniels was my favourite author growing up. Like, whenever I did book reports for school, like in primary school and stuff, I loved her so much. So I would still recommend her if you've got animal mad young people in your life. I love this so much. So, naturally, the older I got, I continued with the animal theme. I just kind of moved up the years in the animal theme. So another series of books that I absolutely adored growing up was the Heartland book series by Lauren Brooke. So once I'd moved on slightly from Lucy Daniels, I moved on to Lauren Brooke. And I think this series has like 20 odd books in it. I still have them on my trolley. Is it 20? Yeah, I think it was 20, and then like a couple of kind of special ones for like Christmas and stuff like that. So I read all of these books. They're all pretty short. I think they're about 200 pages each, 134 pages for that one. So yeah, they're pretty short books, but I adored this. Now this follows Amy, and she lives on a farm called Heartland with her mum, and her mum takes in troubled horses and works with them and tries to rehabilitate them and get them either back to their owners or to a new home. And I'm a horsey girl. I eat this crap up. This is what I love. And I read these books so much as a kid, and was super, super thrilled when this became a TV show. So if you don't know, Heartland became a TV show. It's filmed in Canada, and I think this was set in Virginia, but it was filmed in, I think, Calgary in Canada, and I think the lead in it is Amber Marshall, and I just, oh my god, I love it. They've changed a lot from the books. Like, the first series was very much like the books, and they kind of did almost all 20 books in that series, and it's gone on for how many series now? It must be like 10 or something. There's loads of them. And things are a little bit different, but I adore that as well. So if you're into any horsey stuff like I am, then definitely check out that. It's on Netflix. But yeah, I love these books. I adore them. Amy is a teenager in secondary school, and basically the series is that she loses her mum in a terrible accident when they're trying to save a horse, and then she has intense guilt because she was the one that pushed her mum to go and get the horse, even though the weather was really, really bad. She feels guilty for losing her mum and feeling it was her fault. And the horse, the traumatized horse that they rescued, obviously was in a car accident and is even more traumatized than it was before. So she feels guilty about that as well. And she basically has to find her feet and see if she can be following her mum's footsteps and kind of just figure out her way through life. She's, you know, a bit of an outsider, horsey girl, not really into the popular stuff at school, got a bit of the school stuff in the background as well. And I read this kind of in my early ventures in secondary school, and absolutely adored them, and still do, and still watch the series. That's fairly new, to be honest, but I still love it. I still absolutely love it, and again, nostalgic vibes for these books. I don't think I'll ever get rid of them either. So as I got a bit older, I started to branch away from animals. I know, shock horror, I branched away from animals. Not too much though. So obviously with books in school, you get, I think the books they make you read in school are really boring. They're great for writing essays and there's obvious themes and blah, 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 but they're boring. They're very boring. One of the things I had to do for my English class was to pick my own book and do like my own project on it. So naturally I kind of wanted to pick something that would obviously pique my interest. So what I chose, yes, because it's a dog on the cover. I know I said I was branching away from animals, but it kind of does. So this is The Hound of the Baskervilles by Sir Arthur Conan Doyle. And this is one of the only Sherlock Holmes books I've ever read. Although I do really enjoy the stories, so I don't know why I haven't read more of them. But again, I picked this up when I was buying my school books for the year, and bought it because of the scary looking dog on the cover. And this is basically the mystery of Hugo Baskerville had apparently had his throat ripped out by the Hound. Now one of his descendants has been found murdered on the same route, and it's like the legend, is it the dog? Come back kind of a thing, and Sherlock is off to investigate. And I absolutely adored this book. I really, really enjoyed it. I did a project on it, so it's got a broken spine, it's got stuff written all the way through it because I did an essay on this and a whole project, and I really, really enjoyed it. And it's one of those books that, again, it's a nostalgic thing. I remember how I felt reading it, I remember doing my project on it, and I really enjoyed the story, and I've read it multiple times, and I just think it's one of those books that I'm probably going to hold on to for a long time, and I really recommend this one. It was really, really good fun, and obviously a bit more moving on into like a bit more adulty themes. Really enjoyed the mystery. I love thrillers and things nowadays, and you can't really beat Sherlock Holmes when it comes to thrillers. I need to read more of his books. I think this is really, really good. So that is another one that I kind of read through the years. Next series that I'm going to tell you about is one that is definitely further away from animals. This one is when I started getting really interested in sort of fantasy and witchcraft and that kind of thing. Again, I was in secondary school reading these books, and they're I think they would be classed as young adult. I mean, the other ones, I'm not sure if they're middle grade. Children's to middle grade, I think we are so far. Obviously not the Sherlock Holmes book. And this one would be young adult, but they're very, very short. They're like 200, maybe just over pages. They're very, very short books, but I think they're still classed as young adult. The character is in secondary school. So let's just tell you what the book series is. So this is the Wicca series by Kate Tiernan. So the first one is Book of Shadows, and I've got them here. So I think there's about 15 books in this series. They're all really, really short until the last one, which is a chunkier one. That's Night's Child. It's a very kind of end book. That's book number 15. So they're all really short, but this follows a 16-year-old girl called Morgan, and she ends up joining like a coven with some of her friends just for a bit of fun, nothing too serious, and then kind of figures out that she might actually have a bit more magic about her than she realized. She's adopted, and maybe there's a bit more magic in her family than she was ever aware of. So I adored these books. I adored them so much, and they got me really into things like witchcraft. There's a lot of like fun information that I think is fairly accurate, like on sort of paganism and witchcraft and kind of the festivals and stones and crystals and a lot of that kind of stuff. And I found it all fascinating. I ate this up, and I really enjoyed these books so much. But they were very, very easy reads, and there's like little quotes from different kind of magical books, and again, they're all so stained and browned and bent and basically loved by Emma, because whenever they're loved by Emma, they're a bit shabby. I adored this series and thought it was great, and I would highly recommend. It follows Morgan through her kind of going through her secondary school education. I think they must follow over a couple of year periods, and she's got a few kind of fledgling relationships in that time. She looks at her friendships with her best friend called Bree, and you know, Bree's more the social butterfly, really confident kind of thing, and she's the sort of shy and retiring type. I can relate to that. I was absolutely a total geek, nerd, terrified of my own shadow kind of person in secondary school. So I really related to Morgan because I was too shy to really speak to anyone and kind of just did my own thing, and all my other friends were more confident than me, and I just shrank back. Don't really do that anymore. I'm over it. But yeah, I adored this series of books, and again, I would highly recommend them. I really, really enjoy them. I think sometimes fantasy or kind of paranormally type books for young adults can be quite big. You know, these would be good books for folk that like kind of something a bit shorter. And they're like, the series is really good. It all connects through together, and it does get quite meaty, but like reading one of these is not a huge kind of commitment, if that makes sense. But I really, really adored them, and I flew through them and have read them again multiple times. So again, highly recommend this. And I adored this series as a child. Can you tell how much like talking about old books I used to love gets me so excited? Like it's like when you're younger and like there's like certain bands and music that you like, it just makes you feel all warming and cozy when you think about them again. So I have like that for my old books. That is the kind of books that I read probably up until I was in my last couple of years of secondary school, leaving school. And normally I think people then go to young adult books, like the ones on my shelves here. So there's obviously these are more modern young adult books, you know, Serpent and Dove, and you know, the Curse of Dark and Lonely series by Bridget Kemmerer, Forest of Souls, Wicked Fox, I think. So these are all kind of modern young adult books, and I think a lot of people would obviously then progress onto those, and certainly my friends definitely did. I think I was a lot of them reading Artemis Fowl and Noughts and Crosses, and there were so many like young adult books that everyone was reading at that age. I didn't really go through that stage. I kind of skipped on to adult from next. I've read a lot of contemporary adult books. None of them really stick in my mind. I went on to reading a lot of Sophie Kinsella books. I still have a few of those. I don't know if there's any on my shelf that I could show you. No, probably not. But I've read a lot of Sophie Kinsella. I've read Jackie Collins books for a while, which is not really appropriate books to read when you're a teenager. But I definitely read a lot of those. Yeah, I read a lot of contemporary stuff for a while. I never really related to a lot of the young adult books. I think I liked books that weren't anything to do with like the life I was leading at that time, if that makes sense. I like to read books that were not relatable to my life. I don't know why, but I did. So that's why I think I moved on to the books that were kind of for an older age group. And then from there, I went back to my paranormal kind of feelings. And the first book that I picked up, this is not the right one. So the next series that I picked up, this is actually a book from my shelf, so it's in the middle of the series. So it was Fantasy Lover by Sherilyn Kenyon. I can pop a picture of that book up there. So this is another one. This is Kiss of the Night. I think this is like the 5th book in that series. So I started reading the Dark Hunter series by Sherilyn Kenyon, and I read this kind of in my early 20s. I read most of them. I haven't finished them, and I'm doing a reread of the series just because, partly from nostalgia and partly because I want to eventually finish the series. So I read that, and the book here is what an author's kind of blurb on it there is Buffy the Vampire Slayer meets Sex in the City, and that's kind of exactly what these books are like. They're really funny. They're kind of like got some Greek myth in there, the Greek gods, and yeah, really funny. A little bit of romance, a little bit of smut. We're all good. I think they're fantastic, and I still love them to this day, and it's been like a good 10 years since I started reading these books. So from this one, this series, I went on to find Gina Showalter. So this is the first book in her Lords of the Underworld series. I love Gina Showalter's books as well. They're very similar in the vein of Sherilyn Kenyon's, who's now Sherilyn McQueen. I must remember to say that her name is now Sherilyn McQueen. She's no longer using her married name. So Gina Showalter has very similar books as well. Paranormal. There's a band of men in this book, and I think they were the guards for Pandora's box, if I remember correctly, and they opened it and unleashed the evil inside. So they now all have kind of sort of sins and things inside of them. The first book, oh, what's that? Something sticky. More sticky. Very weird. I wonder where that's come from. Anyway, so this is the first book in the series, and that follows Maddox, and he is the keeper of violence. So obviously that's his issue. There's other ones where there's one that's keeper of lies, keeper of strife, keeper of disease, keeper of lust, I think, or something like that. So they all keeper of different things like that, and they're all romance books where they're meeting kind of their soulmates, and I eat that stuff up. I love it. I still love it, and I'm planning a reread of it, hopefully starting this year, because I really enjoyed these books. Oh, look at that, I just bust the spine even more. Why everything I own is always like broken? Like folk that don't like breaking their spines would probably hate my videos, because everything is like very, very busted. I'm not very good at keeping things looking pretty. Again, I've read this multiple times, and I'm going to wait to read it again. So that's kind of another book that I moved on to in my early 20s. And another series that I absolutely adore, I think if you're into the paranormal romance genre, you're going to know this. It's the Black Dagger Brotherhood series. So this is the first one called Dark Lover, and that follows Wrath. And he is, or is it Wrath or Roth? I'm not sure how you say it. I always say Wrath, but I'm not sure if that's how you pronounce the word. And he is the sort of leader of the Black Dagger Brotherhood of vampires. It's a slightly different take on the vampire lore, where the vampires are the good guys, and there's other beings called lessers, and they're actually the bad guys. And it kind of, it's a bit like a take on like religion and vampire lore, and there's obviously paranormal romance here, and I adore these books. I think they are absolutely brilliant. I think there's at least like 18 or 19 of them out now. I've got most of them. Again, I want to do a reread and, you know, properly finish these series, because I'm so bad for starting series and never finishing them. But I love this book and I love this series so much. So would highly recommend. That is another one of the kind of the same kind of idea. These paranormal books was what I went to next. And that was kind of what I read mainly in my early 20s. After that, I tended to get into a lot of thrillers and crime books. Like some of the series that I can think of off the top of my head is the Maeve Kerrigan series by Jane Casey. I can put a picture up of one of her books there. I love those. There's a few kind of crimey kind of series that I'm really into. I'm listening to one just now. It's not as good as the Maeve Kerrigan series, but that's the Tom Douglas series by Rachel Abbott. I'm listening to that just now. So I got very much into crime and thrillers for a while. I went blasted through tons of those. And then most recently, I have seemed to have gone back to young adult, which may be strange because I'm a 30-year-old woman, but I'm now reading the young adult books that I potentially maybe should have read when I was actually in that age group. But age ranges are just guidance. You can read whatever you want, and I'm quite enjoying young adult books at the moment. So ones I pointed out earlier, so that's the Heart So Fierce and Broken here. So obviously the first one of that series is A Curse So Dark and Lonely by Bridget Kemmerer. Read that recently and really enjoyed it. So yeah, a lot of these books here are definitely in the young adult age range. So I still read adult paranormal, fantasy type of things, paranormal romance, fantasy romance. A lot of young adult, and my sort of thrillers is kind of what I read now, and a lot of non-fiction actually. So my tastes have definitely matured in a way, not in other ways, and diversified a little bit. I read a lot more kind of widely than I used to, because I used to pretty much read animals. And that's about it. If it didn't have an animal in it, I really wasn't interested. So I've definitely broadened my taste, although I still definitely would have a soft spot for something that has an animal in it, or an animal companion, or some kind of beast, or, you know, that is kind of my thing. It's beast books and beauty here. There's a reason we are what we are. That's kind of what I like. So that was a fairly speedy look at the kind of books that I read throughout the 30 years of my life, from when I was being read to now what I read myself now. And obviously I feel very nostalgic and strongly towards all of my books. I have strong memories of reading ones that I really liked. Don't get me wrong, I've read hundreds and hundreds of books, and I've forgotten the majority of them. There's probably only, handfuls of my different time periods that I actually remember reading and loving and having really strong feelings for, which I think is the same for most people. So that was just the ones that I picked out today were the ones that I've kept over the years, because things that have really stuck with me. But yeah, those were the ones that really kind of stuck through my head through growing up. Obviously I've kept them for that reason, and a little look at what I read now. So I hope you really enjoyed this video, and there's going to be a part 2 kind of to this video, because what I've decided to do, because these books have kind of reignited a little bit of nostalgia, is I'm going to read a few of those books and vlog the journey and see how I feel about them, reading them as an adult as opposed to reading them as a child. Obviously with things like the Treasury of Pony Stories, I've read that fairly recently, although that is like a couple of hours maximum of a read, so I probably will just throw that one in there anyway. But I'm going to read a couple of the series that I mentioned today and vlog it. So if you'd like to see if I still feel as strongly reading them now, if they make me feel all warm and fuzzy inside, or if I look back at them and think, actually, they're pretty crap, I will let you know, because I haven't read these books obviously in a long time. So I will vlog that experience, and I will upload that one when I'm done. It'll probably be in a couple of months' time, because there are all the things, all the readathons that are coming up. I'm filming this video in May, and I have the Do the Thing-a-thon and whatever-a-thon to do end of May and into June. So I'm not sure when I will have time to do this vlog, but I am definitely keen on doing it. I'm super excited to film a vlog reading some of my old childhood favourites. So I will do that, and I will hopefully see you back again when I reread some of my old faves. So I hope you enjoyed this video, and we'll see you in another one very soon. Bye!